wanted to make a few points, and they're going to be comparative actually. The first one is about public attitudes about immigration. They're similar in Western Europe and in the United States. About 3/4 of the population think that immigration is a big national problem and that it should be curtailed and restricted more than it is, right? This proportion is actually higher than in other countries like Canada and Scandinavian countries. But it's actually much lower than many other countries of immigration, particularly in the global south, Ivory Coast, South Africa, Ghana, Malaysia. So it's in between in terms of global placement of grants. Now the next question would be how does this play out in electoral politics? And I think in the United States it plays quite well. In Republican primaries. I mean, the exploitation of xenophobia is obviously, during the Republican primaries, it was a competition to see who was more homophobic. I mean, homophobic, that too. Xenophobic. It goes to, and I'll say something about that actually. Even people who had no tradition of particular xenophobia before were openly anti the same process that you mentioned. Now, it also plays well exploiting anti-immigrant feelings in local and provincial politics. Arizona is a perfect example. Alabama is another one. Usually, states are on the Mexican border. But on the other hand, it does not play well in national electoral politics, actually. And it's in spite of the fact that the policy of the Republican Party has been to do so. Actually, there was a great quote about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, no, 4 years ago, yeah. And it was from a Republican strategist. And what he said is that we had to turn immigrants into the new gays. Actually, the exploitation of homophobia had been actually quite advantageous and worked well for the Republicans during the 2004 election. Because in many swing states, a lot of people came out to vote for the Defense of Marriage Act, and in the process voted for Republican candidates. So that actually was strategically quite well. And they wanted to turn in, replace now, or add, I guess, to homophobia, xenophobia as a political strategy. It didn't work in 2004, and it's not going to work now, and basically, more or less, they're giving up. And it doesn't work for several reasons. One is that the nature of US populism, right-wing populism, anti-immigrant attitudes is one of many phobias, and not necessarily the most important. And this is actually in quite drastic contrast to the right wing in Europe. They have phobias against the federal government that they see as like tyrannical, about the right to own guns, about sexuality and gays and abortion and the liberal media and the liberal elites, including people in Columbia University in the Upper West Side. Actually, the Upper West Side became that I think the Upper West Side, it had a tinge of anti-Semitism, the Upper West Side Jewish, but I think Middle America lost that purpose. I think it went violent. The same thing that Hollywood, the attack on Hollywood, used to in the United States be called were for anti-Jewish, but I think now more and more so this is against quite in contrast to the case of Europe. Although the rhetoric against the European Union, the populist rhetoric against the European Union as tyrannical, seems to be reflecting the anti-federal government, central government in the United States rhetoric. Another problem why it doesn't work is that the connection between immigration and crime in the United States is non-existent. Now, this doesn't prevent demagogues from exploiting it, but there is limits to it. Actually, the crime rates of immigrants in the United States are much lower than Native Americans, including Native white Americans. And even the crime rates of the children of immigrants, although it raises, they continue to be lower. So this is not as an explosive and as exploitable issue in the United States as it is in Europe. The same thing is true of terrorism, the aim to connect immigration, fears of immigration, and fear of terrorism. In Europe, it works better, actually, this connection. In the United States, the rhetorical, this discursive connection does not work. When you mention the word immigrant in the United States, without any argument, the immediate image that comes to the collective cognition, to the collective mind, is a Mexican. If you mention terrorist, there is another image. There is another image. The two are difficult to connect rhetorically. And again, in spite of the fact that many demagogues have tried to connect the two, it has been a failure. Another thing that is different in the United States is also that the argument that immigrants abuse social services. In Europe, that argument holds much water and is much more exploitable. In the United States, it's difficult to say that immigrants exploit or abuse social services because the welfare state in the United States is particularly stingy. It doesn't give much. So there is not much to take. So in that sense, it doesn't work that way. Another thing that it was mentioned is that in the case of Europe, immigrants are not only the target of xenophobia but also of racism. The two are beautifully intertwined and fused, right? In the United States, the two go together only in half because we have a native underclass, poor blacks, right, that continue to be the main target of racism. And then, therefore, the ire of racism is a split, so to speak. And it's not complete, it's not whole. And I think this is actually quite important. The other thing is that the reality of immigration is more complex in the United States. It's not only related to poverty. There are many immigrant groups who are much richer than Americans and Native Americans. The per capita family income of immigrants from India or the Philippines is about $20,000 higher than those of white Native Americans. That's true of some African groups that, so it's more complicated. And then the other thing that is different is that the group that is poor, Latinos, is also different. This is not a generational or two-generational group. This is a group that was here before the English were here, before the United States existed. So it's a multi-generational group, right? It's not simply an immigrant group. But that we penalize politicians politically if the xenophobia and anti-Latino volume is too high. So that's why Republicans already are pedaling back, trying to soften they're actually now proposing a new version of the Green Act, which is for illegal immigrants. So you could see it already here. And my last point here is that Americans are actually much more schizophrenic, if you will, about immigration. Because immigration is such a big part of national identity, of national self-description. There are actually 42 countries in the world today who have more immigrants, a higher proportion of immigrants in their populations than the United States. But none of them call themselves countries of immigrants. The United States, the rhetoric of country of immigrants, or a nation of immigrants, is actually quite fused with the nation of self-description. The immigrant dream is the American dream. The description of immigrants is very similar to what Americans think they are, which is entrepreneurial, enterprising, restless, people who are looking for a chance, an opportunity. They don't want security, that's not what they're looking for. They don't want a nanny state that will protect them. They just want a chance. And that's the story that they tell about immigrants. So anti-immigrant policies is very complicated. It's like being against, right, the dominant national self-definition. So that also is is different than in Europe, very